in there.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for that great introduction. Ramona Dye. This is Monday Night Madness on Rise Up Unlimited Radio Show. I'm Andre the Torch Robinson. Oh boy, oh boy. Let me introduce my host first and foremost. Marcus the Alphabets in the house. What's up, Marcus? And you're muted. And that's great.
What's up, Torch? How you doing?
I'll be better in a few minutes.
Okay.
I'll be better in a few minutes.
What's happening?
Demos, what's going on? We got big fella in the house. KD Demos, what's good? I hear what's going on. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in right now. Like and share the show. This should be an interesting show, nevertheless. We got NFL draft talk to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. NBA playoffs. Let's please not talk about Baker Mayfield today. Please let's not talk about
who.
Please, yeah, please let's not talk
Mike
about
Jones
or the Buffalo Bills, for crying out loud.
or
Please
Mike
let's not
Jones.
talk about them unless you got to.
Who?
Yeah, Mike Jones. Yeah, with that being said, let's talk about the NFL draft first and foremost. And by the way, you can join the conversation. 716-481-8249 is the call line number to join in on the conversation. But we got a nice little lineup for you today, and we're gonna start off with NFL talk, draft talk. So, with that being said, let's talk about who the first overall pick is going to be. I'll start off with Demos, the guy with his name on the wall, his own name on the wall. Demos in the house. Demos, who do you got being the number one overall pick and why?
Well, since I did go to Buffalo and I did get to see a true elite edge rusher while I was there in Khalil Mack, I think the Jags will follow in that same formula. And there's a lot of names at the top right now, but I know it's not sexy. It's ho hum. It's sticking with what they've been. I personally would like to see them take Aiden Hutchinson just because I don't know, man. I get it with Trayvon Walker. He's got all the measurables. He's got all these combine numbers. He's an elite athlete, but I don't know. I've always had an issue with guys that, starting out the draft process, he was projected to be a late first round pick. To see him shoot up the board so much is just, I don't know. I just personally don't find it. I don't think drafting guys like that are going to get you wins at the end of the day. We've seen it with Vernon Golson. We've seen it with Aaron Maben. All these guys who put up these flashy, combines and things like that, but weren't necessarily the players that lived up to that. So I just think it's a tried and true formula. Go with a guy is going to come in and be productive right off the bat. Maybe his ceiling isn't as high as most, but his floor is so much higher than others too. So I think Aiden Hutchinson's got to be the pick.
I'm not sold on Aiden Hutchinson. For me, I've seen a bunch. We did, on the Alphabet Football Show, we did our mock draft. Me and Mona did our mock draft. Me personally, I'm going with one of the top tackles. Me personally, you got a franchise quarterback. In my opinion, right after you get that franchise quarterback, the next priority is to protect him. We saw a movie. What's the name of the movie? About Michael Orr?
Hey, I got called that my whole life. The Blind Side.
The Blind Side. That's the first thing that you do. You go. We saw a guy last year, former number one overall pick, Joe Burrow, get sacked. He's the second most sacked, 72 times. Sacked 72 times. That is not conducive to your quarterback playing a long time. Go get whatever your flavor is, Ekwonu. I think he's out of North Carolina State, or Evan Neal, the massive tackle out of Alabama. That's what I would do. You solidify your line. You protect your number one overall pick quarterback. That's what you do. You protect him and you surround him with some weapons. So that's what I would do. Aiden Hutchinson, I don't see it. I'm always wary of any player who's a 1-year wonder. Especially in college, where he has 1 year, he just kind of, or you see tape when he's playing other elite players in college and he's getting his ass kicked. I saw a game where Aiden Hutchinson got his ass kicked by Tyler Linderbaum. Those are cause for concerns for me, because I'm like, everybody who you see in the NFL has at least one elite lineman on their team. So give me the offensive lineman, start building up front. You want to protect Trevor Lawrence. You really have had issues trying to get quarterbacks. The Blake Bortles experiment crashed and burned. So you want to go get a guy who can protect your franchise quarterback. That's just me, though. Ekwonu or Evan Neal.
Now, I honestly, to be completely honest with you, even full transparency with these edge guys in general, Thibodeau, Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, I honestly think all three of them are a little overrated, and I think it's just this year's draft class. That's why they're at the top. Personally, I honestly like Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, and I like the kid from Purdue too, George Karlaftis. I think you're going to get better value with those guys. But again, I'm just trying to be realistic here. I don't know if the Jags would really consider either of those guys at the top pick. But having said that, I do like the concept of protecting your asset with Trevor Lawrence, and I think with just the fact that you do have, obviously they tagged Cam Robinson, but is he really the answer? I know they have Jawan Taylor as well, Walker Little, but are those guys really the answer either? So, I don't think it would be a bad move to take a tackle, but just I think the one thing that kind of pushes me in the direction of edge is just because they do have a guy like Josh Allen, obviously not the Josh Allen that Buffalonians know, but the other Josh Allen, the Kentucky Josh Allen. I think he's a player that if he had another guy on the opposite of him, really could help him grow. And I think whoever would come in at that other edge spot wouldn't necessarily have to be the guy, like most number one picks would have to be. So,
who was the kid that they drafted out of LSU a couple of years ago?
Oh, Caleb Chason.
Caleb Chason. He was supposed to be that guy. That's just, look, that's the tough thing about the draft. We laugh and we joke and stuff, but it's not an exact science. You go out there, hindsight's always 20/20, but when you draft a guy that high, you expect him to be a cornerstone, a piece to your franchise. You expect him to go out there and be around and see a second contract. You expect that. You expect the guy to be there. So I look, for me, when I look at Trey Walker, I have a cause for concern, because I'm looking at who he played with. I always say who you play with matters. I look at all of the players. How many first round picks are on that Georgia defense?
Too many.
You got all of you got a guy like Jordan Davis over there. Nakobe Dean, who's going to be a first round pick. Jordan Davis is going to be. So when I look at stuff like that, it makes things just like I look at quarterbacks who, I always say quarterbacks who play at Power 5 conferences, they go out there and, you look at a guy like Mac Jones, as of recently, you look at who he played with in college, and they put up these video game stats, and then they get to the league and you're kind of like, I remember Tim Tebow coming out. This guy played with Percy Harvin and the Pouncey twins on his offensive line, and Chris Rainey. That's what he had on, and Aaron Hernandez. Whatever you may think of him, he was a pretty damn good college player. So you have to look at Mac Jones with Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith with Najee Harris behind him. Right. So it makes you sometimes look a little bit better than what you are. I remember Kim Dorsey a few years ago. They had 6 first rounders, that Miami team. I think it was the 03 Miami team. You got
01. They had
01. You got Santana. You got Santana Moss,
Andre Johnson.
You got Santana Moss, Andre Johnson, Willis McGahee, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball. What was the tight end? Was it Kellen Winslow Jr. or Chalky?
Both.
Or both?
Both.
Willis McGahee, who tore his ACL, and he still goes in the first round. So
Gore.
I think Frank Gore was Frank. I think Frank Gore. It's Frank Gore. They had like 3 or 4 running backs. They had like Portis, McGahee, Gore, and then the 4th-string running back was Jarrett Payton,
right?
Walter Payton's son. So I look at stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe somebody moves up. Maybe they move back. Maybe somebody wants one of those quarterbacks. I don't think that there's a quarterback in this particular draft that's worthy of a first round pick. But we've always seen that somebody come up. I didn't think Trey Lance would go number 3 last year, but he did. So you just never know when a team is starving for a quarterback. You never know what'll happen.
No doubt.
All right. Let's be subjective.
Objective, but yeah.
Can you let me finish? Thanks. Subjective and objective. Whatever. Jacksonville, first and foremost, needs D-line, safety, and linebacker. Okay. One guy from ownership doesn't like khaki pants product. We've heard about that. He doesn't like the product from khaki pants. So Aiden Hutchinson may not be picked number 1, but then there's another guy in ownership who does want Hutchinson. I would tell you after what I've seen as far as Cam Robinson and Brandon Scherliff and Christian Kirk and the Evan Ingrams and the Zay Jones pickups, those are all offensive pickups. I highly doubt that Jacksonville doesn't go defensive heavy in this first round, in which I'm going to say that they still take Michigan's edge defender in Hutchinson, who obviously broke a college record for the most valuable season by an edge rusher in 2021 at number 1. So I'm going to say they're taking
you think maybe they could move back? Christian Kirk.
Zay Jones.
Let me say something. I'm going to say it since nobody else will say it. Christian Kirk, this is all your fault. The way these wide receivers are acting right now, this is all your fault. They got a tomato can receiver like you, Christian Kirk, who wasn't even a number 1 on the Cardinals, getting $17-18 million, and now you have all these wide receivers looking between him all the way up to the top with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, who deservedly got their money. But now you have all these receivers, seeing how the wide receiver landscape has gone up. If I'm Jacksonville, I'm moving back. I'm moving out of 1 because if you're still in the top 10, you're still going to get an awesome player. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't think the thing about this draft too is I don't see a lot of. There's not going to be a lot of home runs, but there's going to be a lot of singles, a lot of doubles, a lot of solid guys, a lot of guys that I think will play long times in the league, but I don't see a lot of superstars in this draft. So, like you said, if you're Jacksonville, why not move back and load up on picks?
I think there's going to be some really good players in the second round. Mm-hmm. When you look at guys that like the wide receiver from is it Jameson Williams? Is he the one who tore his ACL?
Yes. Yep.
And Mechie.
Him too.
And the kid from Michigan. Is it Ajabo?
Oh, David Ajabo. Yep.
Ajabo, who tore his ACL. I think you're going to be able to get a first round talent in the second round, a first round talent, a top 10 talent in the second round, because I believe some of these players, why would I risk going to go get Jameson Williams when I could grab a guy like Drake London or grab a guy like Treylon Burks or grab a guy like Olave, or just get what I need first, and then in the second round, if I have a high second rounder, get a guy like Mechie or Jameson Williams, who I think will be there early in the second round, or a Ajabo.
1,000%. Yeah, I feel like it's going to go into how teams select, really, because on one hand, there are going to be some, I think some positions are a little top heavier than others. Like I think the the offensive tackle group is real strong at the top, and then it kind of falls off. I think, all those edge guys too. But then, there are some positions where it's like, hey, corners looking deep, running backs looking deep, receivers looking deep. Let's hold off, pick more of a need position in the first and go with something else later on.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you doing all right over there, Firestarter?
Yeah, I'm being the torch today. I'm the torch today. So we got the number 1 pick. I mean, I don't know if everybody knows what teams everybody is favorited or favor, but what do you figure your team will pick in the first round with the first round pick?
Like which team? Like you saying the Bills and Cowboys here?
I guess are those y'all teams? I know his team.
Yeah, I would say. Well, I went first. I went first last time, so I'll let you go first, Marcus.
Look, drafts are always fluid. I've done several mock drafts. For me personally, I'm looking defensive line, wide receiver, or offensive line. If I can get my hands on Tyler Linderbaum, if Kenyon Green is there, Zion Johnson is there, Treylon Burks is there, Olave's there. I mean, I'm talking about guys that are realistically be there. If Jordan Davis is there, you put Jordan Davis in the middle of that defense with DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, or you go get a guy like Treylon Burks, who everybody is comparing his game a lot to Deebo Samuel, even though I believe we have a Deebo Samuel type player in our team. I was looking it up. Do you know that Tony Pollard and Deebo Samuel are the same size? They're the same height, the same weight. 6 foot, 216, both of them.
Tony Pollard might be faster too.
And Tony Pollard played receiver at Memphis. He didn't get to play much running back because they had Darrell Henderson, who's the backup with the Rams. So he didn't get a chance to play a whole bunch, but they lined him up all over the place. Traylon Burks, Jordan Davis. I would love Jordan Davis, Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, or, you were talking about positions that were extremely deep. I don't think center is one of those positions. So if a guy like Tyler Linderbaum falls to 24 and you're able to get a guy like that, because that's where we got our ass kicked at in the playoff game when Nick Bosa was having his way. Breaking news, they just approved his fifth-year option. They went with his fifth-year option, so they got him for this year and next at least till they work out a long-term deal. But if you're getting your ass kicked right in the middle of your line, you're just not going to have much success. Ever since Travis Frederick retired, we just got rid of Connor Williams, who went to – I think he went to Jacksonville, didn't he?
No, Miami.
That's right. And, right there, you at those two spots, your center and that left guard spot has just been a problem. And if Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, or Linderbaum's there, I would love to have one of those guys. Defensive line, Jordan Davis. I wouldn't mind Nakobe Dean. If Nakobe Dean's there, that allows Micah Parsons to kind of wander around. So we'll see what happens. I think there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing. We have several teams with 2 first-round picks. You look at teams like Kansas City, who has 2 1s, Green Bay, who has 2 1s, the Giants have 2 1s, the Jets have 2 1s. So I think there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing out there, and we'll see what happens.
For sure, yeah. The Saints have 2 1s now too. I think I was listening to NFL radio today. I think there's like 8 teams that have 2 picks. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be the Wild Wild West come Thursday night. Just thinking about the Bills, we've talked about it before. We talked about this off air even. The Bills definitely need a cornerback. Obviously someone that'll play opposite of Trey White, but someone that possibly could play, the number 1 corner spot, while Trey's still recovering from his ACL early on in the 2022 season. So, it'll be there's a few guys I think that the Bills should consider. I like both of the kids from Washington are pretty good, McDuffie and Kyler Gordon. Andrew Booth is a name that a lot of people have speculated. And I think him specifically, I think he'd be a really good fit because he plays a lot of zone. He played a lot of zone at Clemson. So I think he could fit there. Some of the names you mentioned as well for the Cowboys, I like those guards, Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green. I think the thing with Zion Johnson, I think he's a guy I would even lean towards more because I think with Kenyon Green, he's got more versatility. He could play a little tackle if you need him to, but he'll be great at guard. But I think Zion Johnson, in terms of just a true guard prospect, he might be the best in the draft. So if you could get a guy that's considered the best at his position in the draft at 25, that's a huge deal. I also think the Bills, should consider some other DBs. There's been talk about Jordan Poyer, his situation, whether he comes back or not, whether they deal him or not. I think some of the safeties are worth a look at 25 too. I like that.
Daxton Hill, a Daxton Hill type player.
Yes, sir.
Cornerback, safety hybrid type player all over the field. A lot of people compare him to a Honey Badger type. I'm not saying he's a Honey Badger, but has some of those type qualities. I've seen some stuff like that. I think at 25, you're going to have an opportunity to get a really, really good player.
Absolutely.
I think you get an opportunity to get a real good player.
I personally think that they should stay put too. I don't think it's really worth giving up some of those mid-round picks, just to move up to cash out on a guy that you think is, your guy in the first round. This, a lot of people's reports are, and we've talked about it too, that this draft is going to be more valuable in terms of the mid-round guys, second-round guys, versus this first round. I really don't think it's a deep first round. So, if they get a guy that they feel is the best on their board at 25, great. But I think the Bills can add to their roster, all throughout the remaining part of the draft from there. So, just thinking about the Cowboys, with their pick, you said they're picking 24th?
We picked one pick right before you guys.
Got you. I was going to say. So, thinking about that as well, are there some guys that you think could potentially fall. That might be a sleeper around that area, that 20 to 25 range, maybe even later into the first round?
I think look. I could see a scenario where you have teams that are, for instance, like the Jags.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have the number 1 pick again in the pick 33, I believe, right?
Yeah.
They have 33. The cool thing about being the first pick in the second round is that you can kind of jump back in the first round. And you see a lot of teams doing that so they can get that 5th-year option for the player. And I believe you're going to have some players towards the back of the first round that maybe somebody says, I want to jump in here where I have this guy's rights for 5 years. Let's say the Jags go offensive line, and then they say, you know what? Let's say I want Aiden Hutchinson and Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis falls towards the back of the end. And then you move back up to 25, 26 and get back into that, get back into that round. Or let's say that there's a run on the wide receivers, and because I believe there's going to be about 6 or 7 wide receivers taken in the first round. I think you look at Olave, you look at Treylon Burks, who else? Drake London. I could see somebody still saying, Jameson Williams. Now he did get hurt during the bowl game, so maybe he's, but they say he's going to be ready. So I believe the wide receiver draft is the wide receiver class. This is one of the deepest wide receiver classes that we've seen. And the thing about it is, I believe that the game is shifting towards that direction, where you have to have a premium wide receiver. You got to do multiple ones, right. And we're going to see. We saw the leaps that Dak Prescott took once they got him a number 1 in Amari Cooper. We saw the leaps that Josh Allen took once they got him a Stephon Diggs. And then we're going to find out about some of these quarterbacks that we hold in such high esteem. The Patrick Mahomeses, the Aaron Rodgers, without a Devontae Adams, without a Tyreek Hill. Sometimes we like to see who deserves more of the credit for what's going on. We're gonna find out about some of these receivers. We're gonna find out about some of these quarterbacks. Now, I saw something today that the Green Bay Packers haven't drafted a first-round wide receiver since 2002. And I was like, really? And I was like, Jordy Nelson, 3rd-round pick, 2nd or 3rd-round pick. Devontae Adams, second or 3rd-round pick. Randall Cobb, 2nd or 3rd-round pick. So will they stick with that? The Donald Drivers of the world. So I don't know. And same thing with the Chiefs, because the going rate for a number 1 wide receiver now is $25 to $30 million. So if you can get that cheap labor as far as a rookie, that totally changes like everything. That totally changes everything. So we're going to see what their priorities are. Kansas City's been really highly explosive. Do they think Patrick Mahomes can make a receiver better? Hey, we go get this 2nd or 3rd-round receiver, and Patrick Mahomes makes him better. So we're gonna see. Aaron Rodgers, he hasn't had that 1st-round wide receiver. I thought they should have drafted Justin Jefferson a couple of years ago instead of drafting Jordan Love. But hindsight's always 20/20, and you got to learn from your mistakes. I believe you have to have at least 2 good receivers on your team, because most of these teams nowadays, they're running 3 wide receiver sets.
Oh yeah, 100%. And whether that's a combination of, like Kansas City did, where they had a star receiver and a star tight end, with some other guys, or you have 2 dudes out wide, whatever the case is, or at least 2 dudes out wide. I think that's the big thing. And I want to go off a point that you had mentioned too, like, even the reverse of that. I think, you see a guy like Devontae Adams leaving Green Bay, like thinking about what Derek Carr has been able to do with, all the mess that he had around him last year and losing receivers and things like that, losing Amari Cooper early in his career. And obviously, unfortunately, the Henry Ruggs situation last year, like for him to get a guy like Devontae Adams, and especially, when you add him to an an offense that's got Darren Waller, an offense that's got Hunter Renfrow, got Josh Jacobs, got Kenyon Drake. Like, you're just giving a guy who has showed, like, hey, he can fend for himself when he doesn't have it all around him. You know, give him some guys that actually can do a little bit more, you know, that can elevate his game. You know, the sky's possibly the limit. So, you know, I'm interested to see, but I'm glad you mentioned Patrick Mahomes because, you know, definitely I'm a fan of him and as a player, like, you know, what he's been able to put together throughout his career. But, you know, I've hated how the national media has kind of just been so, the Chiefs will be fine. You know, no Tyreek Hill, it's okay. Like they'll move on. Like, you not only do you lose him, you lose Demarcus Robinson, you lose Byron Pringle, who I think was an even better, you know, receiver than Demarcus Robinson.
By the way, Byron Pringle, stop driving around with your kid in the car, driving 150 miles an hour in your Hellcat with your kid in the car. That was dumb as hell. I think he'll see some. He's with the Bears now, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But
you mentioned that.
But I think you got to also look at bringing in a guy like Marquez Valdez-Scantling,
right?
Bringing in a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. You still got Kelsey,
right?
You still got the kid Miko Hartman, who's going to have to step up. You drafted Miko Hartman thinking that maybe Tyreek Hill would be suspended or he wouldn't be on the team, and I think it's time for him to step up. So that's the thing about it. That's what I love about sports in general, but especially football, because that's my favorite sport, is that you have to, you know, we don't play it on paper. You can have all of these things, but you still got to go out there and perform.
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing that is kind of getting to me, because I agree. Like, you know, I do think those names are good. You know, I think Juju will be a good, you know, fit. And, you know, I know he's not the speed guy he's never been that speed guy. He brings an element to that offense that they haven't had. And I think adding Valdez-Scantling, he does bring speed, but like, you know, I think people thinking that, oh man, it's just going to be a transition for the Chiefs. I think the biggest thing is the fact that they have 12 picks in the draft this year. You know, that we'll see more change come from that. You know, they'll be able to add some more pieces. You know, I think
2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, and 4 7s. You got 4 picks. 4 picks. Well, 8 picks in the top 4 rounds. I mean, that's very significant. So we've seen Andy Reid go out there and get players, and I just think that he's kind of like that mad scientist. He's like, you know what? I think they're also looking at maybe using some of those draft picks to the Chiefs are very offensive, have been very offensive heavy. All of their money was spent on the offensive side of the ball. You look at Patrick Mahomes, the second highest paid quarterback in the league behind Aaron Rodgers. Remember, Aaron Rodgers just jumped in front of him.
That's true. Yes.
He was at 45. Aaron Rodgers jumped in front at 50. You got the second highest paid quarterback in the history of the NFL. You got, you know, the money you're spending on Kelsey, in my opinion, the best tight end in the game. What you were spending on Tyreek, but you lost. You get those savings from him. You have a lot of draft capital tied up on the offensive side of the ball. You go get Creed Humphrey last year, first round pick. Miko Hartman, first round pick.
Trade for Orlando Brown.
You know, Patrick Mahomes, first round pick. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first round pick. So all of your draft capital is really on the offensive side of the ball. And I think you're going to see now a little bit more of a transition. And I'm not saying that they don't go get a receiver, but I think you start to see, you know, they lost the Honey Badger. And your best now I like the linebacker that they got out of Missouri last year. Nick Bolton. I really like him. I think he's going to be really good. But when you look on the defensive side of the ball, you know, they had went and got a Frank Clark, and you got Chris Jones. Could they go get a guy? Could they go get a guy like Jordan Davis and put him up there? You know, where you can move Chris Jones all over. There's a lot of intriguing possibilities. You know, and maybe they just say, you know what, we go. You know, our first 2 picks, we go, you know, on the defensive side of the ball, because they went really heavy on the offensive line last year, and maybe they say, you know, kind of like what my Cowboys did last year. I think they had 9 picks and 7 of them were on the defensive side of the ball. I think with the division that they're in. You look at the AFC West, you look at Russell Wilson being in your division, Justin Herbert being in your division. You have to be able to, you bet, Derek Carr with Devontae Adams now, you better start, you better start getting, some corners. You got to see a guy like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and the running back Javonte Williams from the Broncos. You got to look at Josh Jacobs at running back. You gotta look at stuff like that. You got to kind of start beefing up that defense because you're gonna, we know what I think Justin Jefferson is going to have a phenomenal season this year.
Oh yeah,
I think he's going to have a phenomenal season this year. You look at what they've done with Keenan Allen and going to re-signing Mike Williams. Mm-hmm. We already know what Austin Eckler brings to the table. Going to go get a Khalil Mack to put on the other side of Joey Bosa. You look at the Raiders going to go get a Chandler Jones on the other side of Max Crosby. So I think you see a lot of stuff going on, and I think the Chiefs, if I had to wager some money on it, I think you see them go a little bit more heavy, a little bit heavier on the defensive side of the ball.
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really, it's needed. Like, I think about like what the Carolina Panthers did. This was 2019, I believe, with Matt Rule's first season as coach. Or no, was this 2020? 2020. And, he went all defense and, he kind of left his offense out to dry, and you can see that now. They've fallen behind, their defense. Their defense looked really good a lot of the 2021 season, but their offense struggled mightily, especially with, leaning on a guy like Darnold for most of the year. But, I think, that's very fair, especially with that division. It's just so, it's going to be a shootout, not a shootout, but it's going to be a showdown every week between all those teams, just seeing how they all shake things out, and especially once they get into the divisional matchups and things like that. So it's going to be interesting. But
I think you have to look at the quarterback play. You saw a lot of the really good quarterbacks from the NFC move to the AFC. You look at a guy who was a former MVP of Matt Ryan, moving over to the Colts. Replacing another bust in Carson Wentz, and that's a whole nother story. Carson, you go there and you got Jonathan Taylor behind you, who rushes for 1,800 yards, and you can't get it done. Best O-line in the league. You got a nice little weapon in Michael Pittman, and they thought so much of you. They go out and trade for you from the Eagles, put you with Frank Wright, who was your offensive coordinator in the Super Bowl year with the Eagles, and they trade you the very next offseason. That tells me everything I need to know about you. Mm-hmm. So you go get a guy like Matt Ryan, move him from the Falcons to the Colts. A guy like Russell Wilson from the Seahawks to the Broncos. I mean, look at the quarterback play, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Matt Ryan. I mean, you had and Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson. I mean, you have some really good talent on the AFC. And you better have some defense because I mean you're facing top quarterbacks every week, and I think the AFC playoffs is going to be a bloodbath, and I mean that I don't mean that like literally, I mean that figuratively. Like the quarterbacks that are going to be in the AFC playoffs is going to be incredible. I'm so excited. And I'm really excited to see some of these second-year quarterbacks or the guys who were drafted during the COVID year in 2020 get an opportunity. Because you look at guys like that, the guys in the 2020 draft, you look at a Tua. I'm excited to see what Tua can do with a Jalen Waddle and a Tyreek Hill and a Raheem Mostert and a Chase Edmonds and a Gesicki and a good offensive line and a creative head coach, offensive coordinator. I'm really excited to see that, So, Deshaun Watson, what's going to happen with the whole Deshaun Watson ordeal? So, it's let me read some of these comments because I'm sitting over here. I could talk this all day. What do we got here? Blaze says also the crazy wide receiver money. Now teams are going to be like, let's get one early and have him for at least 4 years before you have to give up a head. And that's what I was talking about. Like, instead of paying a guy like Devontae Adams, who's an incredible talent.
Yeah.
$25 million, $30 million. Stephon Diggs, a Tyreek Hill, those guys. You know, you go get you a guy. You know, can these guys follow what a guy like, you know, before the show, me and you, we were talking about Justin Jefferson. We were talking about, you know, Jamar Chase just coming out there from jump and just taking the ball and running with it. We two 200-yard games in the season.
Ooh.
I mean, you know, just to go out there now, you know, he played with Joe Burrow in college, but just seeing what he did, when you have success like that, these other general managers are looking for the next Jamar Chase. They're looking for the next Randy Moss. They're looking for that next guy who's a rookie who just comes out there. The next CeeDee Lamb. The next, CeeDee Lamb hasn't hit the Justin Jefferson. You know, these young cats out there. You know,
AJ Brown. DK Metcalf. You know,
Scary Terry from the Washington Commanders. You know, they expect you to come out there now, and you know, a lot of these pro teams are running college concepts. They're running things that, you know, the same plays. That's why I think a lot of these players are able to transition from college to the pros, because they're running a lot of the RPO action, spread offenses, 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, and these guys, I mean, they're basically taking that college game to the pros. So I think you start seeing a premium on the wide receiver position.
For sure. And I just love the way the game's progressed, because, you know, it's unfortunate that Debo has, you know, broken things off with the Niners and wants out. But like, he's really opened doors for future players, because, you know, I've always been a proponent of, hey, like, if a guy is kind of raw as a receiver, I mean, just think about how Tyreek Hill was used as a rookie with the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, no, he wasn't the greatest route runner in the world yet, but get him drag routes, get him slants, you know, have him run real short underneath intermediate type routes. Just get the ball in his hand and let him work. You know, I've always been a fan of that. So that's going to open doors for so many guys, you know, a lot of undersized guys. You see, obviously, a guy like Jalen Waddle, it's hard to, like, you know, because he's an elite talent. But like a guy like him, you know, being able to have a guy like Tyreek Hill being used the way that he was, open doors for a guy like Jalen Waddle to be used the way he was. And obviously Debo did what he did last season. So, you know, I'm really interested to see how the wide receiver position continues to grow, because, you know, you don't see the true physical prototypes every day. You know, you don't see Calvin Johnson's, Julio Jones's, Randy Moss, T.O. types anymore. I mean, that type of guy, yeah, that's great to have, but you're seeing more of the Diggs, Jamar Chase, you know, Justin Jefferson type of.
No, Jamar Chase is a pretty big dude. Was he 6'1", 6'2"? I mean, they're not monsters. Like, I mean, but I think you also have to look at. There's some guys, you know, I call them unicorns. There's guys out there they're one of one. You know, you know. You give me another wide receiver that in NFL history was like Calvin Johnson, 6'5", 240 pounds with 4.2, 4.3 speed. You know, I mean, you had guys that were tall, but they weren't as big as him,
right? You
know, or you had guys that were tall as him, a Keyshawn Johnson who wasn't as fast as him,
right?
You know, so it's like now you're getting these guys 5'10" to 6'1" that can do it all. You know, the Diggses, the Chases, you know, maybe the Devontae Smiths. I think that was more of him being in a run first type offense, you know. But again, you get these teams that focus on the wide receiver position. You look at a team like Cincinnati, how quickly they were able to turn things around. These guys are in 3 wide receiver sets 90% of the time. What do you do when you got to line up against Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, and then you got Joe Mixon behind them, and you got a mobile quarterback who, if everything is open, Joe Burrow will take off on you. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it makes, or you play a team like the Chiefs, or you play a team like the Bills. You know, you got, you know, Stephon Diggs. We'll see what Gabe Davis does. You know, they had guys like Cole Beasley. You got a good tight end in Dawson Knox. and you got an okay back in Devin Singletary. I haven't really been sold, but then you got a quarterback 6'5" with a rocket arm who's mobile.
Right.
It makes things as a defensive coordinator extremely difficult. I would like to see the Buffalo Bills go get a running back.
Oh,
I think you're going to see some good running backs go in the second round. When you look at a guy like Breece Hall, or the kid from Michigan State, or the kid from Michigan,
Haskins. Yep.
There are some backs out there. I don't know if you get any. You think a back will go in the first round?
I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you. So, in terms of a back going in the first round, I really only think a couple teams should even consider it. I think if you're a team like the Bills, you're late first. That's almost a second round pick. And you've got guys that could come in like Walker, like Breece Hall, that could come in, immediately change the offense. You got them on that 5-year plan essentially. And hey, if they're, Pro Bowl, all pro level by year 3, maybe you give them a shorter term deal. So it's, hey, we're not breaking the bank, but we're giving this guy his money immediately because we know we're going to get him the pill. Maybe we get him for 6-7 years, so be it. But, I think only a couple teams should consider it. I think the Bills would be one. I think just thinking about let me see, just looking at some of the teams here in the draft, I think honestly, really the Bills are the one team I think that stand out just because, obviously being from here, just seeing how much pressure is really on Josh. I always tell people, Josh's numbers are great and all that. The last 2 years have been great, but he's got so much on his plate.
You can't keep running your franchise quarterback on quarterback draws and quarterback sweeps and stuff like that. I like giving my quarterback the ability to, if things break down, to take off. But when you have design runs, now we're going to see also, now that Brian Dable's gone, and what type of offense are we going to see? Are we going to see? I think you're still going to be a predominantly passing team, but I would like to see, a little bit more run, a little bit more running game without my quarterback. I don't want my quarterback taking another, 10, 8, 9, 10 carries a game. I just don't want to see on design quarterback runs. If you see things break down and, you see something there, convert a third down, it's 3rd and 2, and he runs forward and gets that and slides. I have no issue with that. But when you're telling him, you're our goal line threat, and you're jumping over a pile for a guy making $42 million, I don't want to see that. Right. And I get it. He's a big guy. It's almost extremely tempting not to do it because of his size and the dynamic play. But we've seen guys like a Cam Newton get beat up. Cam Newton's 33 years old. Tom Brady's 45. Right. And you see Cam Newton looks done. He looks absolutely done. So you want to, if there's a back out there, I like Breece Hall. I like Kenneth Walker. I really like Kenneth Walker. But I think Breece is more of that. I think he's more of that. Now I don't think there's a Najee Harris in this draft. 6'1", 230 with pillows for hands. Can block, pass block, power runner. You can use him in the passing game. I mean, Najee had 74 catches last year, 1,200 yards and 74 catches. I don't know if there's a guy like that in this draft, but I think you can get some value at the running back position.
Yeah, I agree. Even just looking at the list here, I mean, really, there's really not a team that I see. I mean, just about every team is set. Even with teams that aren't necessarily set at running back, like for example, like a team like the Falcons, like they do have a guy like Cordell Patterson, who's a versatile enough player that he's gonna steal snaps from whoever would be the guy that you'd be bringing in. I think a team like the Chargers could use another back because I think Eckler, he's a great player, but I don't necessarily want to be handing them the pill 25 times a game or anything like that.
He's shown that he breaks down a little bit. I'm with you. I think you see, there's not a lot of those straight up workhorse backs, 3-down backs that you can just leave out there. I think maybe Najee's I think Najee's definitely that guy. But you see to me, there are no Emmitt Smiths anymore. There are guys that you the Barry Sanders, you just give them the ball every play, and it's just like the Earl Campbell types, that you just feature. I think maybe Najee Harris and Derrick Henry is like those guys that you can just give them 30, and that takes a toll on Jonathan Taylor types, but teams that don't have that, they usually go with the ground, the thunder and lightning approach. I'm with you as far as with the Chargers. I think you could extend Austin Eckler's. I think you could extend his playing career if you get another guy in there that's a little bit beefier. That you could use on short yardage back, a guy that change it. I like what they got going on with Green Bay. You got a guy kind of like a pass catching back, and I don't want Aaron Jones touching running the ball 30 times a game. Nope. You see they got a little thunder and lightning going on there. The AJ Dillon, a guy like AJ Dillon, who's a monster 240-pounder out of where do you go? BC, Boston College.
Yeah.
An absolute hammer. An absolute hammer. So I like to see that. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man?
Give me your first round pick. We're up here. We're talking draft.
Most definitely.
Number one. And with the number one pick in the 2022 NFL draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Walker.
Why do you think Walker is the pick? Is that who you would pick, or is that who?
No, it's not who I would pick, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and a lot of scouts and a lot of circles have Walker going before Hutchinson, and I love Hutchinson, and I would love for Hutchinson to go to Jacksonville and not go to Detroit and be in my division. I'm a Packers fan, so I don't want him in my division. But Walker he's getting a lot of fire late. And when that usually happens, something's up. And I could totally see the Jags taking Walker.
Now, what are your thoughts on that? Like we talked about this earlier. Like Walker, obviously, he comes from, arguably the greatest college defense we've ever seen. He played alongside some dog, no pun intended. He played alongside some dogs at Georgia. Right. But now he's going to be asked to be the guy, coming in.
Right.
So like, what are your thoughts on those guys who rise like this throughout the process? Have great combine numbers and things like that.
I mean, for me, the greatest defense I ever saw was 01 Miami. That's just me. Like, no doubt. I'm sorry. Georgia was cute this year. Great. They won a national title. That's cool and all. They don't got dogs like.
Was that Vince Wilfork?
That was Wilfork. He will be in the Hall.
DJ Williams, Jonathan Vilma,
Sean Taylor,
Antrell
Roll, Mike Rumph.
Philip Buchanan.
Philip Buchanan. I could keep going, bro. Like
they had Hall of Famers on that.
Like defense. They had Hall of Famers on that defense, bro. Like
Jonathan Vilma, I think too.
Like Vilma will be in a Ring of Honor. He won't be in the Hall for sure. Super if Sean Taylor was still living, Sean Taylor was first ballot.
Absolutely.
Off top. And then you got Wilfo. We already know what he is. Right. You know what I'm saying?
What he did for those Patriots and Texans defenses. I mean, he's a
Hall of Famer.
Easily. I mean, I was looking at, you just don't see a lot of one technique nose tackles make it. But I think he makes it, but I don't think he's a first ballot, because I think sometimes guys have a hard time getting in because of the position that they play. You look at we don't think about one techniques. We just don't. It's not the sexy
position. We get it. It's not flashy, but I compare him to Sat. You know what I'm saying? Sat was first ballot, but Wilfo got 3 shifts, bro.
Two.
Oh, he got 2. No, I think he got 3.
Now I'm looking on his Pro Football Reference right now. He's got 2. But
Okay,
with a resume like this, he got 5-time Pro Bowler, 2 chips, and he's been an All-Pro on 4 occasions, 1 first-team All-Pro, 3.
Listen, even though they were on the defensive line, Sapp was a 3 technique and Wilfork was a 1 technique. So again, I mean, when you talk about that Tampa 2 defense with a pass rushing defensive tackle, when I look at Sapp, I look more at Aaron Donald. That defensive tackle with pass rushing ability.
Right.
Wilfork wasn't gonna rush the passer. He was a straight up anchor to the defense. You line him up in there and a space eater. So I look at somebody like him. I look at a guy like from the Steelers and Casey Hampton, the Ted Washington, Tony Saragusa type. That just look. I'm 350 pounds. And I look Haloti Nada, maybe a Vita Vea from Tampa. I look at, and when I see that, I look at a guy, a big guy coming into the league with athletic, 340, 350 pound guy with athletic talent. Dontari Poe first coming into the league.
Yeah, I remember Dontari.
And you look at a guy this year in a Jordan Davis. I see the same type thing. A refrigerator with legs, anchored in the middle of the defensive line to hold the point. So,
and that's that Jordan Davis. That's the kid from Houston.
No, from Georgia.
Oh, okay, yeah. Big, yeah.
So we talked about some of these guys and the expectations that we have. And we always end up talking a lot of football, but we still got NBA, a little bit of NBA, and we got but we have the draft coming up in a couple of days. Real quick, who do you think? I need a sleeper first round pick that can maybe sneak into the first round, and I also need a guy who will go in the first round, who was projected maybe to go in the first round, then slips to the second round. So give me a guy who's maybe second rounder who can sneak into the first, and then give me a guy who people have been talking up, and you can see this guy slipping totally out the first round.
Well, you mentioned 2 of them, but I think the number 1 back on everybody's board is Hall.
Okay.
And I can see him sneaking in the late first with Buffalo because they need a running back. Mm-hmm. And I could totally see them taking him late first because you got to think that dude is he's a every down back.
He is.
How he's built, he's an every down back. If they can get a guy like that to compare him with Singletary, who's a change of pace guy, slot guy,
exactly.
They cooking with gas now. You know what I'm saying? In that backfield, you don't have to rely on Josh Allen's legs because after a while, it's gonna. You kind of saw it take a toll on him in the playoff game against Kansas City with him running that ball. Just seeing his body language on the sideline, you kind of could tell it's wearing and tearing on his body, and he's young. And I love
25 years old. 25 years old.
Right.
And we talked about Cam Newton being 33. Right. And I mean, he's just done. Like you just look at him and his body's just beat up. Yeah. I debated this with my boy Mookie Hawkins. Shout out to my boy Mookie Hawkins. I just think that they got to go corner. I look at their division. And I look at the track team that Miami has, and
track team.
Me and one of my friends, we were talking about this. We were like, if I'm playing the Bills, I'm going 3 wide receiver damn near all the time because I'm trying Trey White. Mm-hmm. I need to see if you're fully healthy. And I mean, I'm not wishing injury on anybody. I'm just saying, if I see you limping around like ACL for a cornerback, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. When you have to plant and cut and run with a Jamar Chase and run with a Cooper Kupp and run with a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle. And these are wide receivers that you see this year. Right. The Bills play the Rams this year. The Bills play the Bengals this year. And I guarantee you're going to have to line up. You're going to have to put somebody to line up against them. And look, we saw what happens when you don't have that number 2 corner. Just like we were talking about earlier, having multiple good receivers. You also got to have multiple good cornerbacks too.
Right.
And your number 1 corner is coming back from a torn ACL, and Levi Wallace is gone to the Steelers. So you have to look at stuff like that. I like Breece Hall. I think you can find that running back in the second round. Now you may have to run up and get him, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a running back that goes in the first round this year. But I could be wrong because I didn't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire was in the same draft as Jonathan Taylor.
That's true.
That's always true. And he went in the first round and Jonathan Taylor didn't.
Right. So that's crazy things are going be expected for the unexpected.
For sure.
Come draft night. It happens every year.
For sure.
You see certain stuff. You see certain stuff we saw. I remember a couple of years ago, and I don't know if y'all remember this, in 2018 draft. Saquon Barkley went number 2, and we heard people talking about the boy who went to Washington.
Gaskin?
No.
Oh no. Antonio Gibson?
No. The guy from LSU.
Darius Geis.
Oh,
there were people that said he was better than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And you look from the 2018 draft, who's been the best running back from that draft class?
Right.
Nick Chubb, second round pick
out of Georgia.
So he shared time with Sony Michel in Georgia. Right. So you have huh?
You know what's crazy about that? Like most of the best running backs in the league are all second or third rounders. Like
round pick.
Kamara was a third rounder. Chubb and Dalvin Cook were second rounders.
Watch your speaker, Dalton. You got a speaker or something going on over there. You got some feedback, Dalton.
Chubb reminds me of Frank Gore so much.
he's so much more athletic than Frank Gore, though. I feel like, I think Nick Chubb, he is a powerful back. He's got a strong lower half and everything, and he plays in a power system, and played at one at Georgia. But I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for the type of athlete he is, man. Like Frank Gore was a great back in his prime too, but I think he's a better athlete than Frank Gore was.
I got a name for y'all. We talked about guys that can sneak into the first. I got a name for you guys, and I want to know what you guys think about it. Everybody out there watching, Jahan Dotson.
Like him.
That sounds familiar. Jahan.
Wide receiver from and George Pickens out of Georgia.
Right.
Georgia. I think.
Could they sneak into the first? I think you're going to see a run on wide receivers. I really do. I can see a scenario where somebody red shirts Jameson Williams. I think there's locks in the first round that are that they're locks, and I think you also got guys that maybe jump in there because there's a run. I think Kansas City definitely takes a wide receiver. For sure. I think no.
I mean, they could. It just depends on how the board falls.
And that's what I'm saying.
It's funny because we say this every year, and it's like we just don't know what's gonna get, because it might be a run. You never know. It might be a run at quarterback. You never know, because some teams might get needy to where because I heard Atlanta doesn't want the Panthers to either get Pickens or Malik Taylor. Oh no, Malik what is his name? Malik
Blake Willis.
Willis.
So there was a report that came out and said they don't want to see Malik Willis, because if he actually reaches his potential, they're comparing him to a Lamar Jackson type. and they don't want to see that in the division for however many years to come. So I just don't know, because
you just look at the wide receiver class and you look at the wide receiver class you look at a wide receiver class like the 2020 wide receiver class. Right. You look at,
2019.
Henry Ruggs was the first wide receiver taken. I think we see, Henry Ruggs went number one. He was the first wide receiver taken. He's in the same draft with CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, and you already see a team like the Eagles trying to get rid of Jalen Reagor.
Right.
They got a guy like Chase Claypool that was in the second round. So I think you see, I think that there's a wide receiver that sneaks into the first round. I think you definitely see a guy like Burks and Drake London. Mm-hmm. And these guys, and you see when you start seeing these guys disappear, I think you get people that get a little bit antsy, and they're like, "Man, we got to get a wide receiver because these wide receivers are coming off the board."
Right?
And you talked about Dodson.
I'm up now. I will tell you this though, but outside of wide receiver, which you might see a run on because it's not as deep, you might see a run on edge. A lot of edge rushers because it's not deep at all. This edge class is not deep.
After the top 6 guys, it falls off. It does fall off.
When you look at the agent, I have seen Thibodeau all over the place. I've seen him top 10. I've seen him top 15. I've seen him slide back. I've seen the guy that you mentioned, Jermaine Johnson, the kid out of Florida State. I've seen him all over the place. Nice. I've seen Karlaftis all over the place.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a consensus. I've seen Aiden Hutchinson go number 1. I've seen Trayvon Walker go number 1. And I don't think there's a consensus. A few years back, you look at the guy, Myles Garrett, he's number 1. He's the guy. This guy's going number 1. Nick Bosa, he's going number 1. I don't know if there's that type of guy in this draft that you just look at. He's like, he's a plug and play guy. Line him up and let's go. I don't know if you have that guy in here, but I think you got a bunch of guys that can be pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested if you're able to move back, like talking earlier about Jacksonville. If you move back to 5, from 1 to 5 and get some more draft capital, because I don't think that Jacksonville's one player away. No. If I can move back, and let's say somebody, does want Trayvon Walker at number 1. Right. Or one of the people moving there want one of those quarterbacks, because we see that every year. Somebody who wants a quarterback. I did not think Trey Lance was going number 3 last year. I just didn't think. I thought Justin Fields would have went before him. So Dalton, who do you have as your best edge in this draft?
Best edge in draft? I'm going to say Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan.
And why is that?
I mean, I still like he's better than Trayvon Walker and that stuff. I mean, he had good stats, and that's all I got to say.
Okay. So, I mean, when you everybody has, it's to me, it's all what's your flavor? I've seen I thought Trayvon Walker was good, but I also look at who he played with. I look at that and I just like having Jordan Davis next to you, that matters. Having the Kobe Dean behind you, that matters, And I think that, so that Georgia defense was nasty. We saw what they did to Alabama, but it just makes me wonder, can this guy, without that dominant inside force that he had at Georgia, can he still be that guy? Now, if he went number 1 to Jacksonville, he would be lined up to Josh Allen, not that Josh Allen, the other Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen, the pass rusher from Kentucky.
Josh Allen.
Yeah, so it's just going to be interesting. I think we see some moves. We still got some. I think we see some type of movement. I think we definitely get a resolution with the Baker Mayfield issue. I think we get a resolution. He's going to go somewhere. I don't know where he's going to go. Seattle, Carolina said they're not interested. I think everybody's just kind of waiting to see so they don't have to give up resources. That they can't keep him. He's a $19 million kid, cap kid. So they can't keep him.
And they're gonna have to probably pay.
They're gonna have to pay
to trade him.
They're gonna have to pay a lot of his. They're gonna have to pay a lot of his salary. So I'm just, I don't know. I just don't know. We're gonna get a resolution to the Deebo Samuel issue. We're gonna get a resolution to DK Metcalf. We see a lot of these wide receivers that are holding out. Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders. DK. I don't know.
AJ
Deebo.
Brown.
AJ Brown. There's guys out there, and they're looking at that wide receiver landscape, and they're saying, "Hey, show me the money. I want some. I want some." Christian Kirk, this is all your fault. This is all your fault, Christian Kirk. This is all. You're not worth 18 million a year, but hey, it's like they say, you're worth whatever somebody pays you.
Right. He's never
somebody might say you ain't worth it, but somebody out there says you are, and that's where I'm going. Right. That's where I'm going.
Whoever 80 catches, he's never had 1,000 yards, and he's never had more than 6 touchdowns. But he's apparently worth 18 mil a year. But I digress.
Deebo Samuel's never had 1,000 yards. He's never had 1,000 yards. But he does do a lot. But now he's saying, I just want to be used as a wide receiver. Well, part of what makes you dynamic is you running the ball. So
true. But I mean, to his credit, that's a short shelf life. You know what I'm saying? Agreed. And I totally agree with Deebo. I wouldn't want to be used like that either. Right. I mean, dude, I'm not trying to. You're not trying to run me into the ground.
It's one thing. It's one thing to get carries, right? It's one thing to get jet sweeps and we're gonna
Yeah, but no, they were using him like a full
odd formation. Odd formation.
Like no, I'm not doing it.
You better line up and play tailback, boy.
Right. If I'm Deebo, I'm not. I agree with Deebo. I'm not doing that. So pay me my money now, or you can trade me.
Right.
Simple and when I heard the 49ers, they won 2 first-round picks for Deebo.
It's fair,
right?
And you got people coming up that you got to pay too. You got Nick Bosa,
exactly,
who's probably gonna. He's looking at his brother, Joey Bosa. He's looking at Myles Garrett. He's looking at T.J. Watt. He's looking at guys like I need 28, 29, $30 million too, so you start looking at that, which I think they're in a good position to, you got a guy like Kittle, you're going to have to pay George Kittle, luckily you're not really having to pay a quarterback, because you still got Jimmy G and you got Trey Lance, who you just drafted last year. You got him for 4 more years. So, it's going to be interesting to see, how this all works out. Last minute trades, last minute things. So, we're about to get ready to get out. Torch, are you still there?
No, he left. But before I come on there's one person I could see go in the first round who
there he goes.
Feels like second round talent. Desmond Ridder.
Cincinnati. You think he could jump into the? You think he could jump into the first round?
Yeah, I do.
I like first round.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, y'all, over under on 2.5 quarterbacks going in the first round.
Over.
The reason I said Desmond Ridder, I could see him go to the Titans because we all know Ryan Tannehill. He ain't no good quarterback. If I'm the Titans, better get Desmond Ridder for safe. That's all I gotta say.
But I think they really like the quarterback that they just got from Texas last year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
True, but according to scouts, I was watching a couple NFL Network. I was watching a couple other media. I was looking at a couple media outlets as well. That's a sneaky pick. Dalton. Like a lot of people saying Ridder could go to Tennessee if they decide to move off of Tannehill. Because you got to think he's the weakest link of that team, to be honest. So, and after this year, his guaranteed money is off the books, so they can get rid of him.
No doubt. But hey, everybody, we've gone a little bit over our time. I'm so sorry. We always say we're going to start talking some basketball and stuff. I promise you, next week. Well, we probably will talk football because then we'll have to review the draft. I promise we will talk basketball next week. NBA playoffs. We will talk. We'll talk NBA playoffs. We definitely will talk NBA playoffs. We'll talk about a little bit about the draft, our draft wrap up show. Guys, y'all got any last words for everybody out there? Demos?
I'll say 2 quick NBA playoff notes. First off, shout out to the Pelicans for hanging in there. I know Devin Booker's hurt, playing against the Suns and stuff. But Herbert Jones and Alvarado and all those young cats that they had playing. BI obviously doing his thing. Shout out to the Pels and Willie Green. He's a great coach. So shout out to them. But man, I don't want to hear another fan say that Kevin Durant is better than LeBron James. And I'm gonna just leave it at that.
And I don't want to hear anybody else say that Ben Simmons isn't a bust. I don't want to hear that anymore either. That dude is soft. He's soft as a Seeley's Posturepedic. He's soft. That dude is softer than sponge cake. He's softer than sponge cake. Yeah. So I don't want to the Ben Simmons stuff coming in there, maybe just getting traded from Philly to New Jersey. I don't want to hear that no more. The dude is soft. Your team's out there fighting for their playoff lives, and you're nowhere to be found. So I don't want to hear that no more. Dalton, give me a last word, Dalton.
Well, I know I've been on here late, but glad to be on here. And all I gotta say is, go Saints, who dat nation.
Who dat? Make sure y'all tune in. We'll be back the same time next week. I think there's still one of our show affiliates, the Pride and Passion Baseball Show. If y'all are into baseball, jump over there with Amir Ortiz. The Rise Up Family presents Pride and Passion Baseball Show. Go over there. Alphabet's Football Show Friday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I know Torch and Mookie Hawkins and Monster McDowell. I know they're going to have something going on. Bill's morning show probably on Sundays. That's when they usually do that. So all your Buffalo Bills news, go there. And Dre's cooking up some stuff. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'll be doing some draft coverage for Fansided this week. So make sure to check that out on Facebook.
Do it, man. Do it. Hit me up, man. We'll definitely do that. And Dre and Monster, they be over at the Apollo, I think, somewhere. They be doing something at the theater over there. So show love and support, unity and community, all that good stuff. Rise Up family. Go to the Rise Up page. Torch, he printed up some new shirts over there. If you need some Rise Up gear, go over there and show some love and support, okay? We will see y'all next time. Dre's about to shut this down. And we will see y'all next week, man. We're out of here.
Peace, y'all.
Torch.